Jake here for American Muscle, and today I'm taking a look at this K&N Series 63 AirCharger Cold Air Intake for the 2016 and newer Camaro SS. If you're looking for an easy way to improve the drivability and the response of your Camaro for an excellent price, then you've got to take a look at this intake from K&N. This was specifically designed to increase airflow and reduce your intake temperatures versus your stock setup, and it's going to make for a noticeable difference in the way your car drives and responds. And it also doesn't require a tune, so it's a very easy setup as well. Now, K&N has long been the name in cold air intakes, and with good reason. Their intakes and filters are high quality, long-lasting pieces that provide noticeable improvements in overall drivability, and this Series 63 AirCharger system is no exception. Let's start with this filter here. So this is a washable, reusable, high-flow air filter that uses a cotton gauze media and an oiled design to help capture dirt and particulates. Now, since this is noticeably larger than your stock air filter, this is inherently going to let a lot more air through, and the deep pleats here in the filter help with both flow and trapping unwanted debris. And again, since this is an oiled design, you might even be able to see it on my fingers here, you get the added benefit of having that additional layer of protection against dirt and particulates. So the oil on the surface is nice and sticky, a little slimy too when you pick it up. So it can help filter out some of the smallest particulates that might slip through a dry filter. And the best part is that you can just wash this out, re-oil it, and pop it right back in. No need to replace it, just clean it and be on your way. Now, oil filters like this do have a pretty long lifespan, especially if they're properly cared for, so it's gonna cut down on the replacement costs. Now, K&N says that you can go up to 100,000 miles without cleaning this filter in ideal conditions. However, I would recommend cleaning this out every year or so just to make sure everything performs at its best. It's what I do with the one that I have on my own car. Now, the other cool feature of this intake is the heat shield. Now, we see plenty of heat shields for cold air intakes or even now boxes, but this one is rather unique in the market because it's not just a bent piece of metal, it actually seals to the hood and makes the whole filter pretty much a self-contained unit. So as opposed to a more restrictive air box or a more open, smaller heat shield, this one is going to be large enough to allow for excellent airflow, but it's going to keep things sealed off enough to make sure that air is being pulled from outside as opposed to from inside the hot engine bay. And that's going to help make sure your intake to air temperatures stay low. So you get maximum airflow and minimum temperatures. And since the filter is visible with this as soon as you pop the hood, it's easy to check the cleanliness and the condition of that filter without having to disassemble anything. Now, attaching all that trickery to the intake manifold is this roto-molded high-density polyethylene tube. It's super lightweight and it's smooth. It's going to provide maximum airflow, which you can't really hear. Also going to provide some nice resonance, so you get some of that really cool intake noise when you get on it too. Now, another big positive here is that this is a no tune required intake, so you don't need to invest in a custom tune or even a flash tuning module to get this set up to work on your Camaro. Just get the intake installed and you're off. However, I say that with the caveat that as with any other intake, you should not expect huge power gains here. You still should feel some difference in the way your car responds since you are funneling more air through the intake and thus into the engine, but big power gains are not going to be the end result here. You're going to get some appreciable difference though, especially when it comes to responsiveness. And of course, even though a tune is not required, if you want to get the most out of this setup, you can always invest in such a tune. Now, when it comes to pricing, this turns out to be a bit of a bargain in the market, coming in around $450. Again, this puts it towards the lower end of the spectrum price-wise, but that doesn't mean you're sacrificing quality or functionality at all. Quite the opposite, in fact. So if you're looking for a high-quality air intake that's an easy bolt-on upgrade, then this one is absolutely worth it in my opinion. Installation is also quite simple, despite there being a lot of parts here. This comes in at a 1 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and it's a simple bolt-on installation. Plan on it taking you about an hour to complete, and you won't need anything more than common hand tools to get it done. You also get all new clamps and some other fittings that you need to get the job completed in the box when you open it up. Not much more to say about it here, so let's head over to the install bay now, where we'll walk you through the process.
Tools required for this install include an electric ratchet, 3/8 and 1/4 inch hand ratchets, flathead screwdriver, 19, 12, and 10 millimeter wrenches, a pair of scissors, 8 and 10 millimeter sockets, 3 and 4 millimeter Allen bits, and a T50 Torx bit. What's up, guys? Today we're going to be installing a cold air intake on our Camaro, so let's get right down to it. So our first step is going to be to disconnect our mass airflow sensor. So we have 2 T20 Torx screws that we need to remove, and then we can just slide it right out of our tube. So now we can disconnect our crankcase fitting. So there's going to be a gray tab on the back. You can push in, pop right off like that. And then next, we have to disconnect this one-time use clamp. So we'll have to cut that off and then remove this. All right, now our next step is to loosen our clamp, and we can do that with an 8mm socket, and then we can lift this whole airbox out. So next we can go ahead and disconnect our sound tube. Now we have a fitting up here we'll be disconnecting, as well as two T50 Torx bolts that we'll be removing from the front of our engine. So now coming over to our driver's side strut tower, we can go ahead and disconnect our bracket that's holding our sound tube to our AC line. So you can just simply pull that out. And then we'll come up to our fitting here. We have an oval shaped piece where we'll grab the two longer sides and pinch them together. And disconnect our tube. And then coming back under our throttle body, we can remove these two T50 bolts. And then we can lift our whole sound tube out of the way. So now our first step to assembling our new intake is to add our L bracket. Now this is going to go through the heat shield here. It's going to be at a downward angle like that. And then we'll get our bolt with a washer going through the front side, and then a washer with a nut on the back side. So now we'll take our bolt and get a washer on one end, and then we can put that through our hole. We'll get our L bracket with the longer side facing down. Then we'll get another washer and our locking nut. And then we can just get a 10mm wrench on one side and a 10mm socket to tighten this down. Our next step is to install our posts that are gonna go into our grommets. So these are gonna sit on our tabs here, as well as the tab that we just installed. And then we have our bolt with a locking washer and a flat washer to secure this down. Now on our posts, we have little cutouts so that we can get a 12mm wrench on there. So we'll get a 12mm wrench on one side and a 10mm socket on the other to tighten these down. Next, we can install the tube that houses our mass airflow sensor. So we have this little cutout here for this to slide through, and then we'll twist it to line up with our threaded inserts. And then we'll be using our 4mm Allen bolts with a lock washer and a flat washer. And then we'll take our 4mm Allen bit to tighten this down. Now we can install our mass airflow sensor into our tube. The holes will only line up one way, so you can't mount it upside down. And then we'll take our 3mm Allen bit with our included screws to tighten this down. So next we can mount the seal that goes around the edge of our intake box. So it'd be a good time to grab some scissors because you're going to need to cut this to size. So we'll start up here, work all the way around the top, and probably cut it in this corner right here. And then we can take our scissors and cut off our excess. So now we'll install our filter onto our box. So we'll take our largest clamp in the kit and put that down. Drop our filter in. And then we'll take an 8mm socket to tighten down our clamp. So now we can install our coupler with our medium-sized clamp. So we'll slide that over, press that down into place. And once again, we'll take an 8mm socket to tighten this down. Now we need to install our 90-degree elbow into our intake tube. So this is going to thread into this threaded insert here. Now you don't need to go super tight with this as it is a plastic fitting, so you don't want to break it. If you can't get it turned anymore, you can use a 19mm wrench to tighten it down a little more. Ours is nice and secure where it is, so we're just going to leave it like that. Now the orientation of this fitting is going to be pointing straight up so that our PCV line can click down into it. Now we can connect our intake tube to our box. So we're going to take another one of our medium-sized clamps and slide it over our coupler. And then we can slide our intake tube into our coupler. And then we'll take that 8mm socket to tighten our clamp down. So now our last step of assembling our intake is to take our smaller coupler and our two smallest clamps. Slide a clamp over our coupler, and then we can slide that onto the opposite end of our intake tube. And then once again, we'll just take that 8mm socket to tighten down our clamp. Now before we install the intake into our engine bay, we have to cap off the line that we disconnected for our sound tube. So we have an adapter fitting as well as a cap. The cap's going to go over this end and then it'll click back into place like the old sound tube did. So now we can install that cap onto our adapter. Press it down into place, and then we'll take the opposite end of our adapter and it'll click into place just like that. Now to install our intake, we're going to lay our box into these three grommets. They have the corresponding posts that we installed onto the intake box. And now we can install our final clamp onto our throttle body coupler and slide that over our throttle body. And then we'll just take our 8mm socket to tighten down the clamp on our throttle body. Now we can reconnect all of our fittings. And plug in our mass airflow sensor. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the K&N Series 63 AirCharger Cold Air Intake for your 2016 and newer Camaro SS. Thank you for watching, and remember, for all things Camaro, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.